Hey everybody, welcome to an episode of the 3-Point Stance. This is an instant reaction to the Jay Gruden firing. 3 reasons why Jay Gruden got fired. Okay, so the first reason is that Jay Gruden didn't start Dwayne Haskins. Now, if you follow me, you know, and if you've read my Fantasy Football Almanac, you know that I did not think Dwayne Haskins was ready to start. I always thought that this was an oil and water situation with Jay Gruden. He's not the kind of quarterback that Jay Gruden likes. Jay Gruden wants somebody who's polished, somebody who's more of a veteran type that can take snaps from under center and execute the system. Now, Dwayne Haskins, obviously, he's a raw rookie, only started 1 season at Ohio State. He was kind of up and down in that season. And, he's just probably not the right fit for Jay Gruden's system, as I had reported during this year. But the reason that he probably should have started him is his job was already in question anyway. When Dan Snyder's son goes to high school with the quarterback that you just drafted in the first round, I'm sorry, but sometimes you just got to start the guy. Now, I respect Jay Gruden to no end for rolling with the quarterback. We saw what happened with the RG3 and Kirk Cousins thing, but this was a franchise that I think was always setting Jay Gruden up to be the fall guy. If you started Dwayne Haskins this year and you started 0-5, it was to be expected. Now, would he have still been fired? I would say probably, but there's a reason that they drafted him number 1. Again, I don't think that he should have played Dwayne Haskins. If you watch that Giants game, you have to agree with me. I mean, he's just not ready to start in the NFL. I think there's some reports out there today that said he's probably not even going to be ready next year, and I don't disagree with that at all. But again, if you're trying to preserve your job, and Jay Gruden's trying to win games, so again, I respect it. But if you're trying to preserve your job, you start the rookie quarterback that the owner, especially an owner like Dan Snyder, holds near and dear, I guess, to his heart. And let me just say this about Dan Snyder. I have followed and loved the Washington Redskins since I was a kid. I'm 37 now. The first game I remember watching is the Doug Williams Super Bowl, where he went off on the Denver Broncos in the second quarter. Dan Snyder took over the team in the late 90s. They had a decent team. He installed just a poo-poo platter of crap general managers and yes men. This is a yes man organization. Bruce Allen is a yes man. All he's doing is trying to keep his job, and he's doing a great job in terms of keeping Dan Snyder on his side, but he's doing an awful job putting a product that Redskins fans would be proud of. And let me say this, I'm critical of the team. I'm not a homer by any means. I have expectations, and Dan Snyder is ruining my joy. My boyhood team. I can't even root for the Redskins on Sundays anymore because the Redskins winning makes Dan Snyder happy. I dislike the guy that much that I watch the games, and I do. I follow this team. I follow this team as closely as a diehard fan would follow this team, but it just makes me sick seeing what Dan Snyder has done to this franchise. It's disgusting. The second reason why Jay Gruden got fired is, let me take you back a couple of seasons. They made some changes at defensive coordinator. They had Mike Pettine and Wade Phillips both eager to take this job, okay? So they could have put together an offensive system that had Sean McVay before he went to the Rams. You could have paired him with a Mike Pettine or a Wade Phillips. And Jay Gruden said no because he didn't like their energy. What energy are you looking for, man? Their defenses are good. We see what Mike Pettine's doing now in Green Bay. Everybody's going crazy for it. Mike Pettine did a great job. He won games as a head coach in Cleveland with Johnny freaking Manziel at quarterback. He did well in Buffalo when Rex Ryan was the head coach there and he was the defensive coordinator. He did well when Rex Ryan was with the Jets and he was a defensive coordinator. That head coaching job he did in Cleveland, remember Hugh Jackson and that awful record that he put together? This team was actually winning games with Mike Pettine, and they traded, they got rid of him and hired Hugh Jackson. Another pathetic franchise, but good for Mike Pettine for not taking this job because it could have ruined his career. Wade Phillips, by the way, finally, a year after this whole thing, ended up going to LA with Sean McVay, and 2 years later they're in the Super Bowl. So Jay Gruden, man, I think that was probably an ego move. Maybe you're not looking for somebody who was well established on that side, maybe somebody with as good of a track record as a Wade Phillips had. But you know what? This team, was coming off, a decent season, decent playoff season, and it didn't happen. Third reason why Jay Gruden got fired is he didn't kiss the ring. He didn't kiss the ring. You got to kiss Dan Snyder's butt if you want to stay there for long. Because here's what happens, right? And let me take you back. By the way, the Washington Redskins, the Shanahans weren't good enough for him, so Kyle Shanahan went to Atlanta, turned Matt Ryan into an MVP, and they went to the Super Bowl, right? So, but that's okay. That's water under the bridge. Now, Jay Gruden's there. The Shanahans wanted Kirk Cousins to start all along. They didn't really want RG3, but he was the sports car. He was the guy with all the bells and whistles. Bruce Allen traded the franchise away to get into position to draft RG3. Do I disagree with that move? Not at all. I don't. I actually favored that move. I thought that's something the franchise had to do. They needed a quarterback in there, and there was no guarantee when they did it that they could find a guy like Kirk Cousins when they got him in the 4th round. Now, flash forward, obviously didn't work out with the Shanahans. Gruden takes over, and the franchise wants RG3 to start. And Gruden says, no, he's not my quarterback. Kirk Cousins is my guy. Now, at this point, the team was like, okay, fine, but let's not extend Kirk Cousins for less money, because we think basically that you're going to fall flat on your face, Jay Gruden. We're going to fire you, and then the next head coach will reinstall RG3 as the head coach. So basically, they were already setting him up to be the fall guy. Well, Kirk Cousins comes in here under Gruden and Sean McVay. He has a couple of great seasons, at least statistically, strings together a nice year. And then the franchise continued to bungle the Kirk Cousins contract situation. They could have had him for $15 million, but they didn't want to pay it. They could have had him for $18 million, but they didn't want to pay it. So what do? What does this franchise do? They let him walk, okay? And then Cousins gets stupid money with Minnesota. Does he deserve that contract? You can make the argument. If you're their NFLPA and you're Kirk Cousins' agent, you say yes. In reality, Minnesota shouldn't have paid him, and Washington shouldn't have paid him $24 million. But remember, they could have had him extended for $15 million, but they didn't want to do that. And so what do? They let him go, and and they trade for Alex Smith, which he hurts his leg last year. Could the trade have worked out? Okay, maybe it could have. But here's what they do. They trade, I believe it was a second-round pick. I think it was a second-round pick. And Kendall Fuller, the highest-rated defensive back on the roster. Let me tell you why this is particularly stupid. Washington, in all of their wisdom, in today's pass-first game, they like to draft defensive linemen out of Alabama, and maybe the SEC as well, because Preston Smith was also a defensive lineman. And they like to convert them to linebacker. When everybody in the league is saying, hey, you know what, we need speed on the field to pair up with these athletic tight ends that are coming out and these really quick, shifty slot receivers, we're going to go the other way, and we're going to get beef up there and not be able to cover. Is there any reason? Look, I do these fantasy football analytics. Do you know why tight ends and slot receivers always torch Washington? It's because they have no freaking speed on the field. They're covering these guys with linebackers that used to be defensive linemen. Now, Ryan Kerrigan, look, he's a beast. We know that. He's a pass rush specialist. That's great. But do you want him covering like Julian Edelman? I mean, there's a reason that Washington can't compete with these teams that are designed well offensively. And so you have Jay Gruden, like with this system, they're getting slower on defense when everybody is getting faster. And they're drafting all these guys that don't really fit with this system. Jay Gruden doesn't really know what to do. And then Bruce Allen, what he's doing, he's like, well, they're not starting who I think you should be starting. I'm Bruce Allen. I'm a big yes man. I kiss Dan Snyder. Dan Snyder, he might be like, Bruce Allen might be that thing that latches onto the shark. But in this case, the thing is Bruce Allen's lips, and the shark is Dan Snyder's butt. Bruce Allen is awful for this franchise. Remember, they had Vinny Serrato before all this Bruce Allen debacle. What did Vinny Serrato do? He traded all the first-round picks away. Let me remind everybody, since I'm ranting about the Redskins, that during the Joe Gibbs second stint, they decided they wanted a quarterback. Mike Shanahan was in Denver, and 2 to 3 nights before the draft, they said, hey, you know what? We like Jason Campbell. We think Jason Campbell will be there at 25, so let's just trade a bunch of stuff away in the hopes that Jason Campbell lands. And so what happens in that draft? Pick after pick after pick after pick after pick. Aaron Rodgers slips. If they had just waited 72 hours, they would have been able to trade that same crop of picks to draft Aaron Rodgers. But they moved quickly because they're stupid, and they always put stupid people in charge. And what do they get? They get Jason Campbell. Now, in fairness, if Aaron Rodgers had slipped and he had landed in Washington, he would not be the Hall of Famer. As talented as he is, he could not have survived this mess. So I feel bad for Redskins fans. I wouldn't call myself a Redskins fan anymore. I'm a Dan Snyder hater. But, my boyhood love, my boyhood team, it just really infuriates me because I want to root for these guys again. I watch them. every week, and there's a part of me that still lives, but I'm like Gollum in Lord of the Rings at this point, and the evil is taken over. I just want Dan Snyder to sell the team. I cannot stand the guy. Jay Gruden, if I am Minnesota, I am throwing all kinds of money at Jay Gruden to hopefully come here. He has worked with Zimmer before in Cincinnati. I don't know what the relationship is there personally. Frankly, I don't know what the relationship is between Kirk Cousins and Jay Gruden because he didn't exactly step up and campaign for Kirk Cousins at the end of Cousins' tenure. But if I'm Minnesota, given all the criticism and his poor play, I would try to get Jay Gruden in there as a consultant to hopefully just breathe some life in there and re-energize Kirk Cousins and maybe get some play calls in there that he knows Cousins would be able to work well with. There's a lot of weapons there. Frankly, Minnesota should be better. I think that's a slam dunk move. Then they would have Jay Gruden and Gary Kubiak as consultants on that staff, a strong staff with a great run game. Or, I suppose that I think the likeliest thing is Jay Gruden just kind of takes a year off. But he could end up in Oakland as well, back with his brother, John Gruden. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure Jay Gruden will be just fine. He can do whatever he wants to be. He's made his money. I don't know if he wants to go back into head coaching or whatever, but he's a talented play caller. Hopefully he just gets with a more, let's say, solid franchise with solid footing. Dan Snyder, from Washington Redskins fans everywhere, please, man, sell the team. You're not doing anything good. At least just hire somebody that can say no to you and is willing to say no to you instead of that giant butt kisser, the brown noser, Bruce Allen. What a shame. What a shame. Anyway, there's the 3-point stance. Subscribe our video, like our video, comment. I'm sure, Redskins fans, you probably want to, rip me a new one and all that stuff. Go ahead and do it. You're not going to move me off my stance, but, I expect that to be coming, so please bring it. Every fan of the other 31 teams, I'm sure you probably agree with everything I said. But holy crap, man. What a mess that whole situation turned out to be. It's a shame because it should have worked out. I think Jay Gruden's a talented guy. He doesn't make the best personnel decisions. He should have hired better defensive coordinators and better defensive coaching, but he was behind the 8 ball to begin with. So there you go. There's the 3-point stance. Thanks everybody. Subscribe and we'll catch you on another episode.